OKC, there's just something about them with the inexperience outside of SGA and the two co-stars next to SGA that is still a wait and see for me. I said it back in the regular season. This team should win the finals. This team got everything on paper that they should win the finals. They're clearly the best team. But there is something to be said about a playoff atmosphere, you feeling pressure, and you playing worse. The Nuggets have a rebounding advantage. They don't foul, and we know OKC like to generate a lot of contact and like to draw those fouls. And the Nuggets just have an added sense of resiliency now. We knew this was the team they were years ago. Like, the Nuggets have the most playoff wins when trailing by 14 plus points in the second half.
You really disrespected
over
D-Mitch.
the last 7 years with 8 such games. We'll get to that later.
Yeah, he's so fucking disrespectful.
We'll get to that later.
It's fucking backpacking
when
now.
trailing by 14 plus points in the second half last 7 years with 8 such games. Since Jokic has been there, they've been a team that's been able to crush double-digit deficits that other teams have had. This is the first team in NBA history to beat a 65-plus win playoff team in the playoffs, despite having a rest disadvantage, because this was a quick turnaround coming off of that Clippers series, and they don't have that same old factor that the Warriors have, where I feel like they're gassed and they look a little bit too old and unathletic. I think Denver has more than enough athletes, and their role players are really contributing. And although OKC didn't shoot that well, and I thought their decision-making late in this game was very questionable, there's also an X factor with Denver if you're going to get something from Michael Porter Jr. Like, if that's going to happen, a Jamal Murray blow-up game is always possible. So I don't think Denver also gave their best punch either. It's just with OKC, I said it back then, and I didn't disagree with you when you said that Jaylen Williams was your stock down player, because I don't think Jaylen Williams took the necessary leap offensively that we all expected him to take. And in the playoffs, much like last year, he had a really good first round against a team that doesn't belong in their league. And then in the second round, he disappointed against Dallas. And now, right now, first game, he shoots 5 for 20. And what I don't like is that in the post-game press conference, he's playing around with his Gatorade and drinking it in a weird way and acting like everything is a joke and trying to recreate Torian Prince's rebounding clip. He was clip farming after they blew a lead and choked. And to me, it just...
SGA is your leader, man. That's what happens.
It just seems like you're not taking it seriously. You're probably just thinking it's whatever. It's not that big of a deal. And maybe that's just a fan in me that I think it's the playoffs. This is a big deal. This is important. I just think J-Dub, it doesn't really feel like he's all the way understanding of how big of a moment the playoffs are. And that worries me.
How big his role is, too, as number 2 creator. I felt like last night in this discussion, of course, I mean, it comes down to injuries in the postseason. That's honestly the most important.
Can I ask you a question, John? I don't want to ever take nothing from a fan again. Who did you pick, OKC or Denver?
OKC, I took Oklahoma City in 6 games.
6?
Yeah.
You took OKC too?
After last night, I feel a lot more open to this being a 7-game series, though.
John.
Hey, John, in a game 7, who you want?
Who you want?
Who you want in game 7?
Jokic. We were on the stream. They asked me what my final thoughts on Nuggets in 7. And I think, honestly, in the playoffs, injuries will always be the most important thing. It's why the Cavaliers series, to me, went from being Cavs in 6 to it's a 50-50 split, a toss-up. If Evan Mobley's not healthy and an All-NBA player in Darius Garland is still dealing with swelling in his big toe. And that's why with the Nuggets, I see Michael Porter Jr., Aaron Gordon, and Russell Westbrook. I'm saying to myself, that's half your rotation. That's your 2nd, 4th, and 5th best players all down. I'm like, they're fucked. And then the next game, Russell Westbrook comes back after missing one, and then I start to see the light. I would say the Cavaliers are the biggest favorite that I'm concerned about. They're up by about 10 points right now.
17.
17's even better. It'd be nice if my stream could load so I can see that.
Have you looked at D-Mitch's numbers?
Yeah, I've always been a big fan of D-Mitch.
Wow. Go ahead, John. Continue. I want to hear what you have to say.
Thanks. So, I was trying to get back to the Oklahoma City that you're talking about. And I felt that last night they really seemed to kind of frizzle and tense up in that last 5 minutes or so. It was a 6-point game about 3 minutes. The Nuggets are playing the foul game. At one point, they take Jokic out to continue fouling.
Facts.
And I felt like the challenge Mark Dagnall was really bad when Shea was vehemently telling him do not challenge this. He wastes that. the back-to-back missed free throws. But even if Chet makes both, it'd be a 3-point game. The Nuggets could tie it, but you would have went to overtime.
You got to make those.
You would have went to overtime, though. And I felt like at the end, the Nuggets made enough veteran plays. Russell Westbrook making the decision to kick out to Aaron Gordon. Aaron Gordon hitting his 3 throws. You have Christian Brown making a lot of plays. And then I think the unsung hero for Denver, it's Peyton Watson. Even when he's only going 1 of 5 from the field, his energy and his pace, the athleticism that he provides, it's impactful in those 15 to 20 minutes. And I think the biggest difference in this series is the fact that Russell Westbrook's replacing the role that Bruce Brown filled 2 years ago.
Shooting like 42% from the corner.
He's shooting, even when he's not hitting, it's always online, and I hope that continues. But his off-ball play, his on-ball defense, his offensive rebounding, I think him, AG, and Jokic just had 6, 5, and 3 respectively. That is what gives them a chance in the series, because the Thunder really only have one strong rebounder positionally, and it's Isaiah Hartenstein. He's averaging about 8.7 in this postseason. And that's what gives Nuggets kind of that same odds and that same chance of leaving a mark like the Rockets in that Warriors series. I do think the turnovers that we saw Denver commit, 18, that could be something that continues, because you have the best perimeter defense I've ever seen. And I really don't think that's hyperbole. When you're watching Case and Wallace, we talked about that in the stream. Case and Wallace is playing Jamal Murray from basically 90 feet. You have Peyton Watson set a screen, and then it's Shea in his grill on the ball with Jaylen Williams, Alex Caruso, and Chet Holmgren in help. And oh, by the way, we've got 2 elite defenders on the bench right now. I think that is the challenge for Denver. But luckily, they have Nikola Jokic. And the physicality, the leadership, and the presence of his supporting cast, I think that gives Denver a much better chance than I thought coming to this series.
I don't want to say this before you go, that they have nothing for the Joker. Like,
No,
Zubac is a complete difference from Hartenstein and Chet.
They did. They had 4 guys in the game.
Yeah, but that still didn't work. Like, the Joker is
had 40 and
bullying.
20.
Yo, he was bullying. Like, Zubac, shout out to him, because he did as good as a job I've seen anybody. Like, AD has struggled. Bam has struggled. Them two. Zubac was putting his ass in a box. These dudes right here, the Joker probably like, oh shit, like this is food every single time. Like, miss, I got my own rebound, bucket, like post up, 2 men, like he's doing whatever he wants.
And you know what I was thinking of last night after they won the game? I kind of had this thought to myself that the 2023 finals run, they didn't beat a 50-win team in that playoff run, and it's the run that people like say, oh, well, Jokic didn't play a team that was that great or elite in that run.
They only swept the Lakers, LeBron, AD in that run, and
the 7-seed Lakers.
They dog walked the Heat, who were the team that beat the Celtics in the finals.
And then the thought I had was like, imagine if 2025. Not saying it's gonna happen, but imagine if 2025 is the opposite. You beat a Clippers team that won 50 games. You beat a 65 win plus OKC team. You beat a 50-win team in the conference finals, and you beat a team in the NBA finals that was also an elite level team. Like, what if Jokic just goes on an all-time run? And I just feel like whenever you have an all-time player like Jokic, you can't ever completely rule out that possibility of it happening.
Damn.
But yeah, like OKC, this is the last thing I'll say, and then you could go Dales about whoever your pick is. But I feel like oftentimes people always say, "Oh man, I don't care that they're young. I don't care if they don't have experience. That's just lazy analysis. That's just stupid." Like, not really. I think it does matter, and we have to remember that OKC, they're not just young; they're like outlierish young.
Caruso's oldest dude on the team is like 30.
This was the youngest team in history, back-to-back seasons, to be first in the Western Conference. This isn't just like a 27-year-old group that they're not old, they're kind of in the middle. No,
like the Cavs,
yes,
basically.
this is a really fucking young
They're
team.
a lot younger,
This is a team that this is J-Dub's second playoff appearance. This is Chet's second playoff appearance. Last year was their first playoff appearance. This isn't just a team that they're a little inexperienced. No, they are green. They are like diapers fresh. That's how fresh they are in terms of a playoff atmosphere. Even a player as great as SJ, who's going to be MVP this year, this is his 3rd playoffs. This is his what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th playoff series? SGA has played in less than 50 playoff games in his career. Like, this is not just a team that is, oh, you can overlook the young aspect of it. No, because you look at every team that's won a championship or that has been young and has made the leap. Golden State went out and they signed Andre Iguodala for a reason. They signed him for a veteran presence in the locker room.
Bogan on that
exactly. They signed players to have more of a veteran leadership on their team. And I think I like to listen to what players say sometimes about how they feel about teams. I think Draymond, for the most part, even though he can say some out of whack stuff, he is very honest about what he says. And earlier in the season, what stuck with me is when he really said that nobody's scared of OKC. Mm-hmm. And I really feel like that's the sentiment across the league amongst the top West teams. Like, I think
we beat them
they're very well aware of how great OKC are, but I don't think Denver is like fearful at all of OKC. And that's where I think there is.
Boston might be.
Boston against OKC? Yeah, maybe. I mean, they lost twice against them.
They got to get there first. Shit, we got to get there.
I look at OKC and I say there are definitely some schematic issues that they're dealing with, but when you have players that are regressing in the playoff atmosphere, like last year where everybody shot poorly, Kaysen, Isaiah Joe, you name it, they all didn't play well against Dallas. That, I think, is like more of an inexperienced thing, not ready for the moment. And if it happens again, it'll be the same thing. Like, yeah, there are some schematic stuff in there that you can point to, but for the most part, like this team we've never seen a team this young in the playoffs have expectations to go to the finals and win it all like this early.
Yeah, I think the biggest reason why we thought that is just how great the regular season they had, right? You have an historic regular season where you have an MVP, you have probably the deepest team in the NBA. You have an historic defensive rating. You have a coach that everyone looks at as a top 3 to 4 coach in the NBA. So they have everything on paper that you would think a championship team needs to go and succeed, including making a trade in the offseason for a guy like Alex Caruso, who's been in some big games throughout his career. But when you do break it down amongst the most important players on this team, it does get a little bit different because as great as Shea has been, he has not been to the conference finals. He hasn't been to the finals, right? He hasn't really had that moment yet in his playoff career where you could point at being like, that's something where he could go back and learn from, even though you can make the argument last year losing, but it's not like Shea played bad, right? Shea was awesome in the second round. It was more so the supporting cast around him. And that's the more concerning part is I think we all know Shea's going to be great. He was great last night, right? It's really just J-Dub and Chet, because those are the two guys under the biggest microscope going into these playoffs and even going into this regular season, because last season in the playoffs, they did struggle, and they did struggle to shoot, both of those guys from 3. Then your first game in the second round of these playoffs, you go 5 for 20 if you're J-Dub. It's going to be, we're going to look at it a little bit more closer than I think we would have if they won the game, even if the Nuggets made the comeback and say Aaron Gordon just misses that shot. You can look at Mark Daigneault and say, why'd you call or why are you fouling then? Why'd you call a timeout there when you could have saved it for later? And why'd you let Jokic get back into the game in those little moments? So I do think Denver has shown, especially in the regular season, I think you brought this up on the live stream last night, that when they've played, Denver's been able to get good offense against the Thunder. As great a historic defense they have been, the Thunder were one of the couple teams throughout the year that you could point at against OKC, like this was a tough match for them, right? Jokic is going to go out there and be able to maybe not get 40-20 every night, but going up against Hartenstein and going up against Chet Holmgren, neither of those guys are going to be able to contain him, right? Zubac is really the only guy we've been seeing recently that's been able to somewhat limit the Joker for what he's done against, like you mentioned, with Bam Adebayo and Anthony Davis, some of the guys we think are the best defenders in the world. So I definitely took a close look at the series after last night's game, because I felt like the Thunder had been so dominant this year that even with their, quote unquote struggles against the Denver Nuggets this year, that they've been so talented that they'd be able to overcome it. But Jokic showed, like, listen, Shea, you might be MVP. You're not the best player in the world. Like, this is still my league. This is still my title. I'm going to be able to outperform you multiple times in this series. Even when you have a game where you drop 33 points, I'm still going to be clearly the best player on the court for how great Shea is. So I do think the Cavs with their injuries, you probably have to lean that from being concerned. But number 2 would be the Thunder, just because of some of the things you guys are mentioning, right? The inexperience from not just the players, but coaching staff as well, and how great Nikola Jokic is, right? Like, I think Jalen Brunson is great. He ain't Nikola Jokic. I think Tyrese Halliburton is great. He ain't Nikola Jokic. So, like, just having that presence of having the best player in the world and all of the attention that he draws, where Aaron Gordon is going to get open looks, Jamal Murray is going to get open looks, Bruce Brown is all of these guys are going to be able to get open looks because of the gravity that he has compared to a guy like Jalen Brunson or Halliburton, where I know the Celtics were throwing some doubles late in the fourth quarter and overtime, but for the majority of the game, like, if you want to go one-on-one against Drew Holiday, okay. If you want to switch against Al Horford, shit, you've been hitting shots, but, like, okay, you know, like, we're going to kind of allow that. For Jokic, it's the opposite. You're not going to be able to go one-on-one against Chet because he's just going to get destroyed. You're not going to be able to go against one-on-one with Hartenstein. So it's a bit concerning. I'm not overreacting yet. I'm still taking the Thunder, but Game 2 becomes a must-win now.
I feel like the tricky and the interesting thing about Oklahoma City is that the last 3 years in the regular season, they've exceeded the expectations that everybody set for them. But then in the playoffs, they've gotten to such a high point, and they set an expectation so high to the point that we could be on this stage saying that the youngest team in the NBA has championship or bust expectations.
Yeah.
And that is a heavy weight to wear for a team that you look at their roster and we understand what their strengths are, but it doesn't feel like they have a physical enforcer the way the Warriors do with Draymond Green. Or a better example would be the Nuggets with Aaron Gordon, who can wear teams down physically and just control the game possession after possession, even if you are outmatched from a skill perspective. Because with the Nuggets, it's not just Aaron Gordon. It's the duality of him and Aaron Gordon just wearing you down repeatedly on the glass inside 5 feet. The Nuggets started 4 of 21 yesterday from three-point land. And the Thunder still had 4 feet in the paint with 4 different players at all times. They still could not contain the defensive glass. And I felt like you look at the Warriors, another example is Steph Curry wears you down from how much he moves. And then there's Draymond Green, who's just a pain in the fucking ass. And before injury, you have the winning version of Draymond and Jimmy Butler. I feel like with these veteran-laden teams that have clear physical outliers supporting their star, it gives them a kind of an edge, even when they're not necessarily the more talented team. Mm-hmm. And I feel like in last night's game, you felt that with Oklahoma City. You felt Chet Holmgren being put into foul trouble. He had some possessions where he was using his length to disrupt Jokic, but then Russell Westbrook and Aaron Gordon are saying, I'm going to barrel right through your chest, and I'm going to get in one, whether or not they call it. And I think that's what gives Denver a chance in this series.